Grant Thompson and Hugh Maxwell, double IIRSM members who were paired last year through this scheme. Grant and Hugh, thank you for joining us today, and I'm sorry to everyone for the issues that we've had this morning. I know some of you have had to re-register to join this event, so thank you for taking the time to do that. Over the next 30 minutes or so, I'll introduce you to mentoring and our mentoring scheme, and then hand over to Grant and Hugh, who will share their experiences and top tips with you. You'll have the opportunity to ask your questions using the Q&A chat function on the bottom right of the screen at the end of this presentation. And this is also being recorded so that anyone who can't attend the live event can catch up in their own time. So what is mentoring? What's it about? Mentoring is about the mentor sharing their expertise to help someone less experienced in their career or in a particular area to develop their knowledge and skills to help them achieve their professional objectives. It's about empowering, enhancing and facilitating someone to develop and overcome challenges rather than directing, telling or solving someone's problems for them. Many people associate mentoring with an older person mentoring someone who is earlier on in their career. It's really important to stress that anyone at any point in their career may need the support of a mentor, from those entering the workplace to established professionals experiencing a new challenge at work, such as their first global role. Mentors can help in a range of areas too. The icon on the right-hand side of the slide is taken from IIRSM's new competency framework, which will be launched in the spring-summer of 2019. It covers the technical, behavioural and business skills individuals need to effectively manage risk. Mentors can help in all of these areas and also provide more general career-related support and guidance as well, such as CV development, interview technique, that sort of thing. Mentors benefit through having the opportunity to develop their people development skills, build their network and give something back. Some of the qualities which make individuals good mentors include a genuine interest in seeing other people advance and good interpersonal and motivating skills. IIRSM's mentoring scheme. So there are three streams available. We launched the traditional scheme in 2018 off the back of the results of the 2017 member survey, which indicated a strong interest in this area. It was also an initiative our membership and branches committee were keen for us to get off the ground. Hugh and Grant both joined the scheme during the pilot phase, so have been involved for a while now. The traditional scheme is for mentees who are seeking support from someone who has been there, done that, and for mentors who are experienced professionals looking to develop someone earlier on in their career. This year, we're also launching a reverse mentoring and reciprocal mentoring scheme. Reverse mentoring is for experienced professionals who would benefit from gaining insight into what drives younger people or new technological or social trends. Reciprocal mentoring is for you if you're looking to connect with an individual working at the same level as you, but in a different function, company or industry, to gain an alternative perspective on how to approach your work, to share your own experiences and support one another through similar challenges. For example, this could be your first management or leadership role. You can find the details of all of the schemes on our website, and I've included the web address there. That's all from me for now. It's now time to hear from Grant and Hugh on their experiences. Over to you guys.
Thank you, Holly. Good afternoon all. My name's Grant Thompson and I'll be sharing with you my Mentee top tips today. So a bit of background on myself. I've been a specialist member of IIRSM for nearly 2 years now, and I'm hoping to become a fellow member in the near future. I'm also a technical member of IOSH and a practitioner member of IEMA. My background is in environmental studies, and actually started out my career as an environmental engineer working in the oil and gas and demolition industries. And when I was there was quite a heavy crossover with health and safety in this role. So I did my NEBOSH certificate, and before I knew it, the majority of my role was actually health and safety focus. So then I moved into my role of HSE specialist working in contractor management across a range of capital intensive industries. I was lucky enough to spend a lot of time in the States and also across Europe. It certainly opened up my eyes to risk management and best practices outside of the UK. Now, I currently work as the Health, Safety and Training Manager for a pet food manufacturing company based up in Lancashire, which runs on a 24/7 basis, employs over 700 people and works across multiple sites. I applied for the mentoring scheme shortly after moving into this role. It was my first managerial role, and I needed an experienced risk professional to lean on, to learn from, I think most importantly to actually bounce ideas off. So that's when I joined the traditional mentoring scheme, as Holly mentioned earlier, and was matched with Mr. Hugh Maxwell, which will be speaking shortly after me. So on the next slide, I'm going to share with you, well, those of you who are considering applying for a mentor through the IIRSM mentoring scheme, some of my top tips to get the most out of that mentor-mentee relationship. And hopefully this will give you an idea of what to expect and also settle any apprehension that you have. Okay, so my first tip, if you will, is to set goals. So I think early on it's very important that you communicate your goals with your mentor, and the more specific you can be, the greater value you're going to get out of that relationship. For me, my long-term goal, sort of in the next 5 years, is to be a head of or regional manager. So I communicated this to Hugh, and we immediately identified areas I needed to improve on to achieve that goal. So we looked at academic qualifications, gaps in my experience, areas such as management skills I needed to improve upon, and also networking. And from that, we were able to refer back to it, and it kept us on track and kept us focused. I also share with Hugh my sort of role-specific short-term and medium-term goals, and how best to achieve them. So when I first came into this managerial role, there were lots of low-hanging fruits, if you will. There was things like accident forms, risk assessments, job rotation, all of which were discussed with Hugh during our fortnightly phone calls. Number 2 is come prepared. So it's important that you come prepared to your calls or meetings with your mentor with an agenda or topic list. You know, it's very easy to go off on all sorts of tangents and lose track very quickly when you are having a conversation. So use an agenda. It's good practice to send it out before the meeting. And also you can often refer back to it and look at previous actions and things ahead of that meeting. The next one is remember that your mentor is a volunteer. Okay, so that mentor is taking time out of his or her busy schedule to help you. You know, they're very likely to be in roles with much higher responsibility and time commitments than yourself, so it's important not to lose sight of that. And there have been times where I've had to reschedule with Hugh, so it's very important that you sort of give at least 24 hours notice, just so you can come to some sort of workaround. I think lastly, you know, be thankful and appreciate the support given. You know, not everyone has the benefit of a mentor, and you are in quite a fortunate position. So number 4 on my list is don't present problems, present solutions. So it's very easy to fall into the trap of I'll just ask my mentor. Your mentor's there not to do your job for you. I think that's important to remember. So if you do run into a problem, come up with a solution or several, and then utilize your mentor to bounce ideas off. Although you might not be in the same industry, so myself, I'm in the food manufacturing industry, and Hugh is in the steel manufacturing industry. 90% of the time, your mentor will have run into the same problem as you, and they'll be able to steer you in the right direction by telling you what worked and what didn't work for them. A good example here was I rolled out near-miss reporting across the organisation, and naively my initial targets for supervisors was rather ambitious. Hugh quickly identified this, and he was able to suggest a more realistic number based on his own experience in other industries that he's worked in. So I think that was a good example. Number 5 then is listen. So your mentor has got a wealth of experience. In his career, Hugh unfortunately has had to deal with our worst fear as risk professionals. He's had to deal with a work-related fatality. He's attended courts for civil liability cases. He's presented at numerous major conferences. He's also worked in multiple countries such as India, China, Brazil, Mexico, just to name a few. Some of my favourite conversations with Hugh have not been about my work, but they've been about his. So, ask your mentor about their career. They'll be able to tell you the highs and lows and share with you how they dealt with it. And one of the biggest things to actually come from our conversations is the emotional intelligence that we have to have in our industry. It's a very important thing to have in this profession. Number 6 then is be consistent. We all have busy lives and you can become distracted and priorities do move around. But it's important to keep that relationship going. It keeps things fresh, keeps things flowing. So it's important for you as a mentee to be reaching out and scheduling those meetings. And one thing, just from conversations with Hugh, early on, I was scared that I was being annoying, and I was bothering Hugh too much. But just from speaking to Hugh and working out his expectations, my expectations, we were able to deal with that. Number 7 then is utilize your mentor's network. So one of Hugh's first major inputs with me was when he helped me decide which academic route to pursue. So I was between the NCRQ route and the NEBOSH diploma route. So I raised this to Hugh. He got in contact with people within his network, and the next day I was contacted by professors, directors, bloggers, recruiters, all of whom voiced their opinions on both routes. And from that, I was able to make a clear decision, and I've since embarked on the NCRQ diploma route. I'm really enjoying that. And that's the other thing as well, is social media and networking is key in our modern day society. So when networking events do pop up, it's important that you say yes. When your mentor suggests a conference to attend, it's important to say yes. So I just wanted to include that in my top tips there. Number 8 is ask for and give feedback. So this is a two-way process. There's been times where Hugh has asked me for feedback at times with decisions he's made. And he knows he'll always get an honest answer from me, just as I'll get an honest answer from him. So he might tell me, so I might tell him rather, that he might have been too heavy-handed with a decision or too soft on another. And it is a wonderful thing, feedback. It offers that opportunity to reflect, reassess, and also learn. And Hugh actually took this feedback one step further for me and nominated me for the Health and Safety at Work 40 Under 40 Award, for which I was recognised as one of the winners. So that was great, and this award and that recognition, it's really opened up many doors for me, and it's certainly spurred my enthusiasm for the industry even more. So number 9 is don't be afraid to ask those stupid questions. Your mentor, he's not there to judge you or question your competence. They're there to guide you, advise you, and help you develop as an individual. So there's been times where I've needed clarification on some of the most basic health and safety topics, things like frequency rates, noise exposure, first aid. I think it's important just not to be embarrassed to ask those questions and try and confirm understanding. It's much better you do that with your mentor than do it in front of a client or a boss. So do take advantage of that. And then lastly is enjoy yourself. If this mentee-mentor relationship does start to become mature, you're doing it wrong. And myself and Hugh will often have 10-minute conversations about the football or the rugby at the weekend and how the family's doing before any discussions about work are actually had. So in my view, it's not only a mentee-mentor relationship, it's also a friendship. So enjoy yourself and embrace the opportunity that you have. So I'm going to pass it over to Hugh now for his top 10 mentor tips. So over to you, Hugh.
Thanks a lot, Grant. Hello, everybody. Thanks for this opportunity to share some of my experiences, and in particular, what I feel the role of mentoring means, and the top tips as to how to actually go about mentoring. Firstly, a little bit about myself, for those of you who don't know me. I've been associated with the IIRSM for over 25 years. Over the past 10 or so, I've had the honour of being a fellow and also an IIRSM ambassador. And as of the first quarter of 2018, I assumed one of the roles of a mentor in what was the pilot scheme, where Grant and myself became closely associated and have developed a very strong mentoring-mentee relationship. Now, I don't particularly like the term mentee and mentor. I much prefer to think of it as a partnership, because we both learn from each other, and as the relationship grows in terms of trust, you learn from each other, and you continue to learn and develop a strong working relationship. I've got a reasonably strong management background. I've got a degree in chemistry and maths, a master's in total quality management. I've been a fellow of the CMI, IIRSM, IIRSM and ALM as well, so I'm quite fortunate. I've had a lot of strong management training over the past 30 years, and I've been fortunate that over 20 years of those have been experienced in senior HSE or risk-related leadership and mentoring roles. So prior to the IIRSM scheme, mentoring wasn't really new to me. It was something I've been expected to do in my business. The first company I joined, Foseco, specialised in supply to the foundry industry. And because it's a bit of a black art, a lot of the actual development of knowledge and skills was actually based upon developing mentoring type relationships in the business. So that was fundamental to the way we did business there. So I've been fortunate to have mentored multinationally at varying career levels, some fellow risk and safety professionals, environmental professionals, some purely managers who needed some support to apply themselves dealing with people, dealing with specific projects or issues. And headcount, I hate to total it up because it's scary, but I've been involved and engaged with either 100 mentoring partners, and I'll be quite honest with you, I don't recall any where we haven't both gained some form of success in terms of them achieving their ambitions and aspirations, and me myself as a mentor being able to learn a lot more about life from a different perspective, and really enhancing and improving my own management capabilities and competencies. So I was very pleased to see IIRSM leading the way with the mentoring scheme. I was glad I was able to contribute towards the first successful round, and now on an ongoing basis. Last year, I was also highly honoured to be nominated for and receive a reward from the IIRSM for the Best International Risk Initiative in May last year. So having received that reward and accolade, it's really pleasing for me as a safety and risk professional to be able to give something back as well. So really, what I'd like to share with you, very similar to what Grant said, really, are my top 10 mentoring tips. We've all got different styles. We can all pick the textbook up, but this is really based largely on my own experience and based on really where the gaps were when I first started myself as a mentee rather than a mentor, and how I've had to try to build up and work with people, sharing best practices, developing our own best practices where possible. I think if you want to set out and really achieve as much as you can from a mentoring partnership, the first most important point there is to make sure that you as a mentor have the right skill set, and yourself as a mentor or mentee form the right chemistry. What I mean, it's important that you have the right knowledge, skills, and competencies and experiences that they want you to share. And you've got to make sure that from a personality perspective, you gel and you're compatible. For example, it's no point trying to link an introvert and an extrovert, because delivering things in different styles can sometimes be confusing, can sometimes be frustrating. And again, depending on different cultures, you may not come across as positively as you think you are. So it's really important from really the first meeting onwards, you try and form a relationship, get a better understanding of each other, and get a feel as to whether or not it's like a happy marriage. Will this work? Because do we have the components that really each of us is mutually expecting to apply in this relationship. So having sort of done the groundwork, set the scene, and established whether it's right or wrong, really then you can move on to what we call the second phase, which is really building the relationship and the rapport. Now, both the first phase and the second phase of tips I've put together is about building trust and agreeing early ground rules. This is where really you want to form a relationship built upon confidentiality, professionalism, impartiality, and being non-judgmental. Some of the things that your mentoring partnership will share may be confidential business type matters. It may be about individuals in the business. You should be there as a confidant and not let things leak. Sometimes it's just letting your mentoring partner get things off their chest and really formulate and decide for themselves the best way forward with a little bit of nudging or a bit of advice. Really, you questioning them in terms of their thought pattern and their processes. So it's important that you build this trust, but equally important in building this trust is not purely work. It's important that you develop a strong relationship together, and as Grant said, that includes us discussing a bit about our families, our interests, our pastimes, and taking this mutual interest, because it's a relationship, it's a working relationship where you want to achieve more than you would with a workmate. So to me, it's a very honoured position to be in, and it's important that being given that level of trust, you establish the right ground rules, respecting the wishes of the person, their trust, and instilling the confidence that they feel that you can give them what they actually need to help them develop moving forward in their career and with the objectives that they set. So having established this rapport, this trust, for me, the third point I would focus upon is setting the right roadmap, setting the right plan by setting realistic goals. So it's about structuring and about prioritizing how best to move forward. And it's really putting the onus on the mentee sharing with you and agreeing the scope of what they want to get from this relationship. If it's a short-term, quick project that they're looking to try and resolve something with, obviously the planning and preparation and the depth of analysis that you do together is much more different if you're looking at somebody trying to plan, similar to Grant, really their first step into management to be as effective as possible to enable them to put them in a strong platform ready to move on to the next role. So it's important that you work together, undertake some form of assessment to ideally identify which topics and which criteria, both in terms of training, in terms of competencies, in terms of management development, and equally as important, as Grant mentioned earlier, in terms of emotional intelligence. Because if you want to be an effective management role, leadership is key, but so too are skills like influencing others, motivating others, and having empathy with others. Because I said, if you want to be effective, then in our roles, a lot of the time we're relying on getting the buy-in of others, selling rather than telling. So having set these goals, it's important that we do a gap analysis to establish where we are currently against where do we want to be, where do we expect to be. And then set some realistic but achievable milestones to actually get there within a sensible time frame, and actually defining what you'll see as success. Because this will be the part of our plan which we use to try and assess how we're progressing. Are we hitting the right notes to achieve what we want to, or do we need to sometimes sit back and review and really readdress some issues before we can move forwards? A big part of the actual mentoring relationship is listening before you speak. Being experienced guys and being highly motivated, it's dead easy to try and want to jump in straight away and say, do it this way, do it that way, Grant. But that's not what the process is all about. The process is really all about allowing the mentee to decide what they want, rather than pushing them in a way of making a decision, to make the decision. It's really exploring the options and allowing them to make these decisions for themselves. So it's important that you actively listen and support them in selecting, but you don't dictate to them. You analyse and review, you question them, you challenge them to think for themselves, because ultimately they're the one who have to live with the decision-making process. And if it doesn't go well, we have to sit and review and try and come up with something with a plan B to try and overcome what went wrong, revisit it, and put ourselves in a stronger position and try to avoid it happening next time. Now, no real success came without failure along the way. So it's important as well that you don't demotivate your person that you're actually mentoring with, that you actually keep them on really motivated, allow them to establish their way of doing things, but support them and review with them to make sure that they get maximum success from what they apply. So, as I said, the next step really is really all about supporting the success of your mentee. And in support, a big part of that obviously is motivating them, encouraging them. But as I said, nothing breeds success like success. So if you can help them with a few early successes in their role, be it personally, be it work. I mean, with Grant, he mentioned some of the successes he had in terms of putting things like new accident reporting systems into place, getting people to buy in there. This motivates you and helps you to grow in your confidence, but also it helps you instill confidence in others at work, that you're capable to do this and that you are making positive contributions to really continuous improvement and change in the business. So this supporting this success is key, because it's all about taking this vested interest in the welfare of your mentee and their success. And that's a big part of it. Really you're there to try and motivate and get the best from them, and you do get some pride, and you actually do get some confidence and sometimes in your own ability that, yes, I've been out there, been able to help somebody else at this stage in the career. So it really does make you quite proud when you see others achieving what they can with that little bit of support from you. And as I said, no success comes without failure. And when I say failure, I don't see it as failure, I see it more as a learning point. Take it on board, learn from when things don't go the way you want them to, review and revise, and then go back and have another stab to make sure that you can build and develop and move forward. If everything was easy, we wouldn't really need managers, we wouldn't need safety risk managers and leaders in the jobs. So it's important we take these times to reflect when things don't go so well as the things that go very well. And coming on to that is a sixth point about providing timely and constructive feedback. It's absolutely key. We should be open and honest at all times in the partnership, and whenever necessary, question and challenge what the mentee thinks so that they get a deeper and wider understanding, sometimes seeing things from outside the box, which enables them to develop as a even stronger leader or manager. And particularly when there's tough or challenging tasks they're facing, you should try and use this experience of mentoring to prepare them, whether it means rehearsing, whether it means role-playing, getting them really more attuned into a stronger situation so that they're confident to deal with these tough situations as well as with the day-to-day stuff. So it's all about learning, it's all about sharing, and it's all about caring. Questioning what could have been done different and what can we learn from each of its experiences. I've already touched on point 7, the importance of some early successes. However small or tough a task may seem, it's important that from the mentee's perspective that they feel they've achieved something early on, because I feel it instills an inner confidence in them. It's something you've not done it, the mentor. The mentee's gone away and actually delivered something. And it's something that you should recognise, you should actually compliment them on, because I think that's a big driver in them moving on to the next step and making it a positive contribution. I'm a big believer in a 100-day rule. For example, with Grant moving into the role recently, into the new role, he's got the opportunity there to shape it. First 90 to 100 days, you want to learn, find out, analyse what are the early successes, where are the gaps where we could have problems in terms of legal compliance or in terms of increased risk in the business, and try and come along with some good, solid, corrective and preventive measures that not only fix the situation, but are recognised by all stakeholders, the people it affects as well as management, because that instills greater confidence. And I believe, particularly with Grant in his role, that is one of the reasons Grant moved from a HSC role and was immediately given the additional responsibility for training. So recognised what a good guy he was, how much he could contribute. Step 8 is that you prepare your mentee. When I say prepare them for challenges for each step. You don't just say, right, these are objectives for your next step. Help them, support them to formulate their way of attacking it. And this is where the milestones, the targets and review and progress comes in hand as well. Regular meetings, we said roughly every 2 weeks. don't put too much in terms of actions. It's better to do 2 or 3 things well than 6 or 7 things badly. So work together to agree what the priorities are, and then enable the mentee to go out there and deliver them their way. And then point 10, which I think should be important throughout the whole process, as well as monitoring and measuring, it's important you share experiences. You'll both gain and learn a lot from each other, but enjoyment in this whole process is key. I think the more you enjoy, the more it really spurns on success, the more you develop and share the relationship, the more it becomes the mentoring partnership I talked about, rather than mentee and mentor. So I do apologise if I've super saturated you with a lot of things there, but I think it's critical when somebody puts their trust in you as a mentor, that you give your all, and you see it, whether it's inside or outside your company, you see it for how important it is in terms of somebody else's personal development and trust. So thank you for that opportunity, and I'll be quiet for a while now.
Thank you both for sharing your experiences with us. If anyone has any questions, we're going to stay on the line for a couple of minutes longer, and you can ask those questions to Grant and Hugh, or both of them, or to me, by using the chat function, which is on the right-hand side of the screen. Just while we wait for to see if anyone's got any questions, I have one for both of you, and it's about how your meetings actually take place. So we sometimes have people who apply for the scheme who prefer to have a mentor or mentee that's located close to them, but obviously that's not always possible because our membership is based internationally. So I just wondered, how do your meetings take place? Face to face, virtually? Is it a bit of both? And are there any do you have a different approach depending on the meeting method?
Hi, Holly. I can start with this one.
Okay.
One of the biggest challenges for myself and Hugh has actually been getting the opportunity to actually meet. So myself and Hugh haven't actually met yet. We've had, as I mentioned earlier, telephone calls on a fortnightly basis. They do work well, and we have had a FaceTime as well. And yeah, that is something that we've been looking at doing. I'm actually hoping that during the upcoming IIRSM awards, that there'll be the opportunity for myself and you to meet up. But with that said, the telephone calls have worked well. We've both been able to sit in front of a laptop with our agendas and being able to take notes. So I wouldn't want that to discourage anybody. If you do live quite far from one another, it's still just as beneficial to utilise technology and approach it that way. I don't know if you've got any points on that, Hugh.
No, I think it's worked pretty well. I think, as I said the first couple of points, because we built the rapport, the relationship to begin with, and set some milestones and expectations, the fact that we've not actually met face-to-face hasn't really been a barrier, hasn't been a burden. We built the trust, we knew what was expected. Every meeting we come away, 2 or 3 points as to what we wanted to cover, how well we covered them, and moving on for the next meeting. So I think, once you get this cycle going, it doesn't have to be face-to-face, as long as you've got that strength of understanding between you.
Okay, great. And I know that, Hugh, you're mentoring somebody else who's based overseas too. So I guess you're using Skype and telephone and that sort of thing for those calls as well.
Yeah, Rob and myself, again, very similar, from a slightly different industry, from the oil and gas industry. Great guy who works in Africa, and we tend to try and do exactly the same, and it works very well on that basis as well.
Okay, brilliant. Right, we've got a question through from Laura, who's asked, I've heard a lot of talk about reverse mentoring. Hugh, do you feel like you have learned a lot from Grant as well?
Hi, Laura. Thanks for joining us. Good to see you in there, undoubtedly. And I think as time comes on, as I said, originally it starts off, it's not a one-way process. You're building the rapport, without a doubt. One of the benefits, one of the really the intangible benefits that you get, either directly or indirectly, reverse mentoring comes about quite naturally, because you build this trust, you build this relationship.
Okay, brilliant. Right, I think we've got another question coming through from Gurpreet. He's just typing now. In the meantime, I guess, what are the biggest challenges to mentoring for both of you?
Hi, Holly. I suppose I did touch on it earlier. It's that consistency aspect.
Yeah.
I think there's, you can relate to this as well. You often can get tied down with your responsibilities and also social life outside of work. So it is finding that time to sit down and have those discussions.
Mm-hmm.
I'd certainly say that's one of the biggest challenges
that
I've found. But so long as you're organised and you book in and plan for these conversations and telephone calls, that's the only the way to work around it.
Okay, and Hugh, anything to add to that?
I'd agree totally what Grant said. It's about timing it, but the other thing is as well, it's about managing expectations as well, Holly. It's important, some guys, everybody wants to get, particularly, no disrespect, but, people are keen at work, they want to make success, they want to be a success, but sometimes they don't realise how much groundwork needs to be done in terms of sort of preparing them. And as I said, the approach I've taken with Grant, we focused on personal development, we focused on making sure that we've got the right technical competencies as well as the actual, as you mentioned, the soft skills, the emotional intelligence. So sometimes setting these expectations is key, because the last thing you want is, and particularly where there's different cultures involved, is coming away and only sort of satisfying it 25-30% against what the guy's expectation or the lady's expectations is. So setting the right ground rules out first in terms of expectations. Meetings are always going to be difficult, so that flexibility is key as well. Okay,
brilliant. Right, I've had a few more questions come through about how mentors and mentees are matched. I think that's the one for me to answer. So as part of the application process, mentors are asked to provide an overview of their experience, their strengths, how they envisage they could help potential IIRSM members in their careers. And then likewise, when mentees apply, they also have to complete an application form, which again asks for some information about their experience and also their goals, and whether their goals are related to technical competence, behavioural skills, or their soft skills, as Hugh mentioned, that they're looking to develop, or are they seeking someone with experience of the industry that they work in. So sometimes people request mentors from different industries, and as Laura's mentioned, it is good to be matched with people from different worlds, because it helps open you up to new ideas and fresh perspectives. But likewise, depending on the mentee's goals, it may be more relevant for them to be matched with someone who has direct experience of working in the industry that they do. And we had another question: are there a list of mentors I could contact? So the first step is to apply for the scheme. There's 3 application periods per year, and the next one is coming up in May. So I will send some information about that after this webinar, which explains how to apply, the deadline to do so, and that sort of thing. And then thereafter, we can look at matching you with a suitable mentor. Okay, have we got any other questions? I think that's all for now.
I've got one.
Go
ahead.
For
the attendees.
Okay.
Has this session been useful to some of you in terms of getting a better understanding of what the IIRSM is trying to achieve and what can really be achieved through mentoring? So I'm a firm believer with sort of over 20 years experience that part of my management success, to date, has been grounded really on being fortunate to have some good mentoring along the way. Has it been useful to people? Is there anything we didn't cover that they would like to find out more out in future?
All right, I've just got some responses coming through now. I've got some yeses, which is always good to see.
And just on Hugh's point, any feedback or any follow-up questions outside of this webinar, you can see on this last slide, both myself and Hugh's LinkedIn links are there. So we both would welcome any questions or feedback.
Well, I think there's a comment there from Complete that didn't realise that this was available. as I said, it was only piloted last year. Fair play. Holly's done a great job. It's difficult for us as well with what time we've got. And I'll be honest with you, the people that Holly put forward to myself as potential mentees, she did a lot of good work in terms of trying to match. And I believe the mentees I've been dealing with, it's been successful for us both.
Yeah, brilliant. It's interesting to see actually that people have only just become aware of it. So yeah, that's good for me to know. So I can go out and do a bit more promotion, because as I say, I want as many people to be involved in this as possible, because Grant and Hugh, I think, have been a great success story, and we want to see some more like it.
Absolutely, Holly. And there was a question earlier about different industries and the mentee and the mentor being from those different industries. And I think, although there are different levels of risks, different bits of legislation between industries, there is a huge amount of crossover. And I think it has helped me, certainly, hearing from you, to think outside the box with certain things. So I think it's quite a healthy thing to be matched with someone in a different industry.
Okay, brilliant. Well, thank you both for your
likewise for me.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry, and likewise for me with Grant, some of the stuff I've learned off him, and although I'm a global environmental leader, he's my environmental guru now.
Well, there you go. That's perfect. That's what it's all about. Okay, well, thank you very much both for your time today, and thank you to the participants for joining us. I'll send a follow-up email later on this afternoon, and you've got the details there if you'd like to get in contact with any of us in the meantime. Okay, thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much. Goodbye, everybody.